Thanks for tuning in for another episode of the Voices of Boyle. This week I'm sitting down with Brian Scanlon, whose family has played an integral part of Boyle's story, especially from the start of the 1970s when his father bought Scanlon's pub. We'll be exploring his memories, family traditions, and the community spirit that makes Boyle so special. So I hope you enjoy the episode. Brian, great to have you here. Thanks very much for joining me today.
Thanks, Carlo. That's brilliant.
Brian, there's a lot of history that's tied to Scanlon's pub from over the years, and we're going to get into that. Mm-hmm. But first, let's bring it all the way back to the 1970s when you were a young fella growing up. What was Boyle like back in those days?
Boyle was a very nice town. The people were wonderful in it. I remember, as I mentioned earlier to you, 1976, and the summer, the hot summer. And I remember my father bringing me over to the Flaherty's, which was Eileen Flaherty, Bernard Flaherty's shop, the music shop. And I remember going in, I remember looking down at the end of the shop and thinking, God, this is a fabulous shop. I remember looking down at the very end, and it was a very warm summer. And I remember coming back out again. I remember the heat was absolutely, and that was the earliest I remember of going through Boyle, and it was beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
And would you class that as your earliest memory that you can remember of childhood, or is that a kind of a good memory of the old summer?
Well, it was a good memory of yes. Yeah, I could go back further, but I won't get into that now because I just talk about the 70s in general.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. And so the Boyle back then was a lot different than the Boyle today.
Completely different.
In what ways then?
Well, I suppose there was a lot more activity going on in Boyle back then, and I remember the summer was very warm, and that was 76, and then in 1977 when I started school in September, I remember it was also very warm as well, and the first day when I went to school I was very nervous if it was it was all new to me, and because I was always kind of daydreaming anyway, you know what I mean, and of course we were the first, I think, in Boyle, the second people to have a colour television. And remember Paddy Ryan, he was the first one in Boyle to have a colour television, and then we were the second people to have a colour television. And I remember watching all the programmes on the television. There was The Fantastic Journey and Tree for the Road and, and Wonderly Wagon and all those.
Oh, I remember that.
Yes, and I remember the television was brilliant that time. We had a television before that, but it was black and white, and I was never interested in television back then. But when we got the colour television, it was brilliant. And of course, we lived over the pub. Of course, the pub was never my scene. I never liked the pub. I never liked being in the pub. It just wasn't my scene, we lived up overhead, but I always wanted to go upstairs and be upstairs, you know what I mean? Even though a lot of people say, well, children in the pub and that, but the pub was never my scene. And I remember the television broke down one time upstairs, and there was a film called at the Centre of the Earth. It was science fiction. I'm big into science fiction, and at the Earth's Core was the name of the film. And I remember it was premiering that evening, and my father said, "Oh, should come downstairs and watch it downstairs. Your film is starting." And I remember going down, and it was, of course, the people were there, the old folk, as I would say, and they were drinking their pints, and I was watching this movie. But I couldn't even go and finish the movie because I wasn't relaxed because the pub wasn't my scene. So I remember just saying to my father, "Oh no, I'm not going to wait. I'll wait till our own television is fixed." You know what I mean? So that was back then. But I remember starting off very young, I was 7 years old, and Boyle was a completely different town then. Then we had Gaffney's ship shop. Remember the fish and chip shop that was there, and they were lovely people. And we used to go in there and have always kind of treat us to a snack, and it was known as the snack bar. I'm sure a lot of people would have remembered it as the snack bar. And yes, and I remember my sisters having their friends up, and yeah, it was wonderful. It was a wonderful time.
Yeah. A change Boyle from today.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And of course, it was buzzing with activity, and you know what I mean. Everybody knew everybody, and it was just buzzing. Boyle was buzzing. It was actually one of the number one towns out from Carrick-on-Shannon was kind of quiet, but Boyle. But it's amazing how it has flipped now. Carrick-on-Shannon now is the place to be now.
And Brian, can you tell me maybe one of your earliest memories of growing up?
I do. I remember in the house we are now, that I'm in now at Finn Street. That's where that was me. Actually, my grandparents bought that in the 1950s, I think, or just after the Second World War. I think it was, they bought that house. It was McCabe's before us. And then my father, when he got married, they moved in there then to Elfin Street, and now I have. But my earliest I remember it was Christmas, and I remember I was in the front room, and the Christmas tree fell down on top of me. I remember getting off a fright, but that was my earliest remembrance of with the house I'm in now.
And were there any family traditions passed down through your generations that you can remember? Was there anyone that stands out?
No, but I do remember my aunt Helen and Phyllis. They'd come down every Christmas. They'd spend most of the time with us, at Christmas. Of course, Phyllis died in 1985. But then, when I was about 13, we're living in the pub now at this stage, because we moved into the pub in 1973, and we lived there till 1984, and then we moved back up to the Phyllis Street where I am now. But I remember I was into music. I love music. I remember when I was about 8, I had to go to hospital. I had a lot of problems with my ears. I had what's called blue ear, and I was always kind of deaf, and I had to have surgery every 2 years, and grommets. I had to put in grommets. And Dr. Nahareggi in Sligo, he was a lovely doctor, and he used to perform the operation on me. But I remember I was used to be into transistor radios. I loved transistor radios, the pocket radios. And I remember my mother bought me a radio, I remember, from Flaherty's music shop, and it was a Philips. And of course, I remember preparing for the hospital. The next day I had to go to the hospital. I was packing the bag, and then the radio fall out. And then he looked down and said, "Oh, I'd love to have that radio." It was a transistor radio, but it was slightly bigger than what he had. And he said, "I have a radio," he said. "Would you be willing to swap?" And I said, "Yeah, I don't mind." And he had this small little white little pocket radio. I loved it, and I had many hours with that little transistor radio. I brought it to the hospital, and it used to break, and I used to open it up and fix it. I was able to fix things. Then the word got around that I was able to fix things.
Bit of a handyman.
So they used to send in the radios to me, and I used to repair the radios. I was 8 years old, and then when I was about 12, I was gotten into televisions and repairing television. I remember fixing the TV we had upstairs, because it used to break, and Tom Murray used to take it in and repair it. And then another time Emmett took it in. There was tubes in it, and there was the line out tube as well as the damper tube. And I used to go up to Farrell's and get my father would buy the parts, and I'd put them into the TV, and I'd be adjust to the TV, and my father used to always come in, because he used to work in the railway up, and he was a signal man up there, and he used to come in and said, "Be careful that you don't electrocute yourself." And I said, "Well, I understand the workings of the TV, the live section, and so I used to spend hours repairing TVs. I had a good knowledge of electricity and that, and dangers, what to touch and what not to touch, and the only time I ever got a shock was my Uncle George sent in a black and white television where it fell over, and one of the valves at the back got broken. It was actually the same line out valve, the line out valve, and I opened it up and I said, "Oh, that valve is gone." I said, I'd be able to replace them with Tony Farrell. So I went up to Tony Farrell anyway, and he had the parts. So I remember he gave me the damper as well as the line out. And I remember putting in the main line out, and the damper, it was okay. It was lower, but it was kind of a pinkish light coming off it, so I knew it was coming near the end of its life. But I thought I'd plugged out the TV, but didn't I put my hand on it when it shot me across the room? I said, "What happened there?" And I remember looking and seeing the picture on. I said, "That's not like me. That was an awful stupid thing to do." And I remember getting an awful shock of it. But that's the only time
you learned a lesson.
I learned a lesson. But anyway, I managed to repair the TV and send it out from. But yes, and then of course I got into the music then when I was 13 years old. That was 1983. My mother had an organ, so I learned to play on the organ. That very organ is on the YouTube. If you look on my channel, you see me.
I'll link to that your YouTube channel.
Yes, and you'll see the organ. That was the instrument I learned to play on, and I was 13 at And then I was 17 then in 1987. I was actually professional then at that stage because I used to do the odd wedding with the video camera as well. And for that, the people said, go up and give us a party piece. And of course, the band members was always say, oh yeah, come on up. And I'd be playing the keyboard. They had very professional keyboards. I was in my element. And of course, one of the band members said to me, can you play in the key of B? I said, oh, I can, yeah, no problem, I can play in any key. He said, I want you to join my band. He said, I'm looking for a keyboard player that can play in any key. And so I'd love to get in on your band. But unfortunately, I was 17 and my mother wouldn't allow it. But anyway, that's, God knows where that would have taken me.
So my next question was going to be, Brian, what did you do for entertainment when you were younger? But by the sounds of it, you were happy out there fixing radios,
Yes,
and getting the odd shock here and there.
Well, no, not that was the only time I ever got a shock from the television.
Yeah.
And of course, from the other colour TV, I remember just touching the fuse and getting a bit of a rattle, but wasn't as bad as the other one, like with the valves, like, you know what I mean. But yes, I enjoyed repairing stuff. I used to spend hours, and of course I remember another. I will share as well, because I was always pulling things apart, and my father used to always say, "He has everything smashed in his house." But I was looking for knowledge. You see, that's why I opened them up.
You were
curious. I do remember one incident. I'm sure the listeners of Boyle family will remember this. My father had. I remember there was a press up at the end of the room. We were living over the pub at this stage, and in our sitting room, which was the room over the pub, there was this press and there was a clock. And I remember looking at the clock. I remember thinking to myself, they were very unusual numbers on that clock. They were actually Roman numerals, but I never seen Roman numerals before. And I remember looking at the clock, and my father looked at me and he said, Brian, he said, see that clock there? I said, I do it. Don't you dare touch that clock. And I remember looking at the clock and I said, well, you're dead. And I took the clock and I threw it out the window, 3 stories up. And there was a painter, what's the man's name again? Jimmy McTiernan, and just missed his ear by inches. And I remember looking down and got awful fright because I didn't want to.
How big was the clock?
It was a wind-up alarm clock,
okay,
with the bells on it, you know.
Oh, yeah.
But the clock survived. It never smashed or anything. It survived the fall. So anyway, that was what I only remember me father saying, don't you touch that clock. I remember saying, you're dead. But no, I was looking for knowledge. I was always looking for knowledge.
Yeah.
And look at the things, and how does that work, you know. But I picked it up fairly quick.
And that you also then, going forward, which we are going to talk about in a bit, about the video footage that you've taken of Boyle, which is a major part of Boyle's history, is that footage you have.
Very important.
And we get to that.
Yes.
Maybe before that, why don't we maybe touch on a bit of the history of Scanlon's pub? Because obviously everyone in Boyle,
of course,
even through the decades, as far as I know, was there a Frank Cunningham in the 20s?
Yes, Frank Cunningham owned it, yes.
In the 20s.
That's right, yes.
And he was a bit of a character in that. I remember reading somewhere in some of the publications on Boyle that he was a very strict owner, and that when his workers were out bottling,
yes,
he used to make them whistle.
Yes,
so
that's true.
So that he'd know that they weren't drinking the liquor.
Absolutely, that's now you brought back a memory to me now. Yes, right. Exactly. And he also had a grocery shop as well.
Oh, okay.
In the same place, he had the pub at one end and he had a grocery shop down at the other end. Actually, we still have the little pigeon boxes. I have them in my shed at the back of the house where my father brought them up from the pub. Because my father bought it in 1969, in November 1969, and I was born in December, 27th of December 1969, but he just bought it a month before I was born.
And it was opened in 1969, or was it later? It was
1970 he opened it at the pub.
Yeah, okay.
And I remember one of our drivers, Sean Devitt, came into my mother and he said, you're now a proprietress of a pub. And my mother looked and, what are you talking about? But apparently Daddy had the auction, went to the auction, and of course he was standing back at nobody seen him at the door, and of course the judge was there, and it was what you call your man, the Daddy was just kind of nodded or, you know, and I think, boom, he banged down, sold. And nobody knew who bought the place, like, you know.
Not even your mother.
Yes, and of course then as time went on, they found out, yes, that he was the owner. So, yes, we opened in 1970 and, of course, we moved down in 1973 then. That's, my earliest memory of it.
And a lot of people, obviously, Brian, would remember the big kind of, not so much dances, but music was a big part.
Yes,
and it was the John McCormack room.
Yes, in 1976, 1977. The Stones is actually in the front of the pub now. If you notice the Stones on it. My father put them up in 1976. I remember it well. I remember going to a beach. I don't know what beach it was, but he loaded the minibus up with these Stones anyway. And for 1976, they went on. So they're there nearly 20, over 40, how long would it be? 48 years ago. Yeah, it's a long time. And I remember it well. And then 1977, then the John McCormack room opened up.
And what was the significance? What was the John McCormack? Was he a local?
He was the Irish tenor. He was.
Okay.
Yes.
Right.
I
didn't know that.
Yeah, he was.
So that's why the room then was named after him.
My mother named it after John McCormack because she was very much into John McCormack.
Yeah.
Which was a very good tenor. As you know, from that alone, the people of Ireland would know who John McCormack was,
And your mum and dad as well, from what I heard, used to go out to Claret Hall back in the day, teaching music.
That's right. Yeah,
Tell us a bit about that.
Very young. Yeah. That was long. That was back in the 60s. Now, long before I was born.
Yeah.
She was teaching music. Yeah, she was a music teacher.
And they used to go out there and do a couple of sessions, was it?
That's right. Yeah, she'd have students there teaching them out. She was an absolutely fabulous musician. Like she played the violin as well, which unfortunately I don't have any music for playing the violin, but I do have. I actually have a CD, it was a tape, I put it onto CD of her singing in the John McCormack room. I'd love to get somebody maybe to help me put that up online.
Oh,
because that'd be something for people. I would like the people to hear.
So do you have it on
CD?
You have it on CD?
Yes.
Well, it should be a case of just... I'll talk to you after. We can
That's grand. Yes.
We can try and get that because stuff like that I think are brilliant to have.
Oh, absolutely! In fact, she was a wonderful singer, and she played the piano, beautiful piano. Yeah.
And so obviously the pub trade in Boyle back in the 70s, 80s, and every pub and any pub did a roaring trade.
Absolutely, they did.
And there was 30-something pubs, whatever there was. There was huge amount of pubs compared to now.
Yeah.
You used to play in the pub as well.
Yes.
In the John McCormack room.
No, not in the John McCormack room.
Okay.
No, I was too young for that now.
Okay.
Yes.
In the main pub.
I remember being upstairs, putting my ear to the floor and listening to my mother playing. Yes, I was 7 years old. I remember it well.
Yeah.
No, we were never allowed down into the John McCormack room because obviously it was a lounge bar, like a lounge as well. So.
And going back to something I read as well about Scanlon's back in those days of Frank Cunningham's era, there was the bank managers, solicitors, doctors were very revered back in those days.
Oh, they were, of course.
And 8 or 10 of them every single night of the week used to meet in a back room in Scanlon's, and that was called the Inner Sanctum.
Yes, that's right.
So that's something that maybe not a lot of people would know about.
That's right. You see, like I said, Boyle was a completely different town back then.
Even then, of course, yeah.
Like I remember some of the characters, they were just lovely people. They were very sincere people. You know what I mean? I just remember them. It was a different culture. It was just different culture.
Absolutely, it was, yeah. And Brian, darts matches were a huge thing in Scanlon's. I know that from my dad being involved in many matches in there, but that was a big part of the pub scene back then.
It was, yeah, because we'd have a few pubs around the town, like Jerry Mattimo, Andy Care's, the Mickle Martin, the Three Counties. Yeah. So we'd always kind of we'd come together and say, well, the match is going to be in such a pub tonight. So we shared the matches. It was brilliant. Brilliant, yeah.
Great atmosphere as well.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
And then growing up as a young fella, 70s, 80s, there would have been a lot of kind of central characters or figures in the town. Would any of them stand out for you? For me, one of the ones I kind of always remember, and I was scared of my life of him because I didn't know, but was he was called 40 Coats, but his name was actually Francie Keenan.
Frankie Keenan.
Frankie
he was
Keenan.
known as, yes.
Yeah, and
Frankie.
seemingly he was a trained classical
He
singer.
was, absolutely, yes. But a nice now devil, so he was. He was a gentleman. He kept to himself.
Yeah.
But I do remember one memory, and I want to share this for the people of Boyle as well. We were living in the pub, and the year was 1982, and it was coming up to Christmas. And I remember, I don't know, my mother said, Frankie Keenan has got a new coat, so he'll be known as 41 Courts. And we all were starting laughing. And I remember looking out the window across the bridge, and there he was going across with the new coat on. It was a very short coat. It was kind of not coming down his back all the way, but it was a very bright blue colour. I remember that stuck in my memory. I remember that. Yeah. So we were, instead of called 40 Courts, he was known as 41 Courts.
And I think his appearance as a young fella, of course, for us growing up, would have been, he looked a bit scary.
Absolutely. If you didn't know him, yes.
Of course. And I remember he used to hang out around, there used to be public toilets there beside the Lovage Cafe.
Yes.
And he used to hang out there a lot, but as a young fella, I was always scared of him.
Yeah, well, he was anything but. He was a very gentle person.
Yes, that's what I've heard. Yeah,
yes,
I've always heard that.
Person,
yeah. And to just get back to your dad then there, Brian, your dad worked in the railway.
That's right, yes.
Back when he was a young fella, wasn't he?
He was 15 years old when he started as a boy porter.
Okay.
Yes.
And then he had also, everyone would probably remember the taxi service.
Well, he was he used to be a smoker as well. He used to smoke. And then he decided to himself, well, I could be buy a car and make it pay, and that's why he gave up the cigarettes then. And he bought the car, I think it was long before he met my mother now, it was back in the 50s. And he had a local hackney service. And
in the
1950s, yes. And he met my mother in 1960. And then he got married in January 1961. And of course he was, and then he was doing the hackney for years, and then he decided, well, sure, if I had a pub too, because he used to come into our front room and to be waiting, like people would come in and to be waiting for my father.
Have the pint while they're waiting?
Yeah, no, to come into the house, like the private house. And my father thought, well, if I had a pub now, I'd be able to kind of kill two birds with one stone and bring them home, you know what I mean? So that's what inspired him to buy the pub, like. And then people would come in and sit in the pub and might have a mineral, or a lot of people didn't drink now. A lot of them had minerals as well, and to be waiting for my father because he might be out on a run, or might be doing a school run, or he might be at the cabin. If he was at the cabin, somebody else, my mother, would bring them home, that kind of way.
And I wonder, would that have been one of the first hackney services in Boyle?
No, McKenna was there before us.
Was
John McKenna was there.
Right.
Oh yeah, he was there, I think, before us. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But back then there was enough of business to go around.
And then there was Ted Gunn, he was another one that was, yes.
Okay.
So I think there was about three of us all together.
Yeah.
And we all done very well.
Oh, of course. Just like the pub scene back then.
Absolutely,
as well.
yeah.
Plenty
and like we all got on like a house of fire. A lot of people thought there might have been animation or whatever. No. We got on with it.
And then you mentioned then your mum playing music for a long time.
That's right.
And you also...
I started getting into the music then when I was about 13. I just got into it. I used to listen to the radio and I loved music. I just loved to play the piano and play the organ. And my mother kind of showed me a basic run through it there. And she noticed I was playing in the Black Keys. And she said, why are you playing in the Black Keys? She said, you have to walk before you be able to run, that kind of way. And I got straight into it. I was professional, you could say, from day one.
Right.
I was playing in every key. I just wasn't happy with just the plain white keys. I wanted to go into the black keys as well.
And how were you learning back then? Was it a case
by ear? I could never read music. It was something I could never do. It was read music.
Can you read it today?
No.
There you
I
go.
just can't get that part of my brain doesn't work.
You don't need to though, if you can.
But I can. If you hand a song to me, no problem.
You can get it.
Yes.
So you're back in those days, because I remember seeing a YouTube video, Brian, with yourself, and you were playing the piano or the keyboard in the pub.
Yeah, that was the organ. That was the first. That was the first instrument I learned to play on, was the organ, and that was a Jumbo 61 organ. And then I remember in the 1980s, then 1987, my father wanted to buy me a keyboard. And he said, well, the organ has to go if you want to get the keyboard. And I kind of sorry now that we sold the organ, but we sold the organ and he got me a keyboard. That was the keyboard I kind of got more into it. Like. But I always, my preferred instrument is the piano. I love the piano. And I remember back in 1985 when my Aunt Phyllis got sick and she died, we had to go to Dublin most of the time. And there was a music shop up there called Walton's. And I used to always make an excuse to get into Walton's. And I'd say to my father, bring me into Walton's. And fair news to me, he never refused me. He'd always bring me back to Walton's. And there was this baby grand piano. Oh, I loved it. And it was £6,000 at the time.
That's a lot.
Yeah, a lot of money. And I remember playing it, and of course I was shy, as you know, around people playing, like, you know what I mean? And so I looked around, there was a few people there, and I was kind of tinkling at the keys, you know. And then I looked and, I'm on my own now, nobody's here. And I really got into it then. I was playing my heart out in the piano anyway. And listen, as soon as I finished then, I started tapping. There was about 20 people behind. Oh, I nearly died because I was kind of shy in front of people. And I thought that was brilliant, you know, I enjoyed it. But then I always wanted a baby grand piano. That's my next thing now. I'm thinking about maybe getting myself as a baby grand piano. Yep. They're not hard. They're not easy to come by, though. That's the only thing.
Yeah, our space.
Yes, well, I make space.
Well, good man. And so how many nights a week then were you playing music in the pub?
Well, mostly at the weekend now, and on the Wednesday night. We used to have the Wednesdays too. A lot of people will remember too. We had Shannonside in 1990. We had Shannonside in, and Carter's Kidney was the presenter. And he used to play it every Sunday then, or every second Sunday he used to play the episode. But I remember I didn't play that night because I did, like I said, I was a bit shy going on public, you know what I mean, performance. But yeah, we used to have the Wednesday nights, and of course a lot of the local people like Mick and Lil Hannon just down the road here, I'm sure if you know them, they were good customers of ours as well. They used to come in every Wednesday night. They used to look forward to the Wednesday night and we'd have the music.
Yeah. And your dad also played music?
No.
He didn't?
No.
Okay, I for some reason thought he did.
No.
Okay.
No.
With your mum, did you get inspiration from her playing the music?
Yes, absolutely, yes.
And you then took it on your own and
absolutely.
You developed from there?
I developed from there, yes.
And do you have any personal favourite memory of playing music with your mum? Was there a specific night that
that night on the video, if you go into my channel, Brian Scanlon keyboard, you'll see me in 1987 playing with my mother. That's the only video I have with her, like, you know.
Oh, is that it? Okay, that's a special
that's
memory.
a special. So I put that up on the channel because I wanted to share it.
Of course, yeah.
Because I like to share things with people, you know.
Well, yeah, and that's the next topic I want to get into is a lot of people would have seen your footage and they wouldn't have known it was taken by you. And I'm referring to the 1985 Boyle Arts Festival that's right. Up on YouTube.
That's right.
And it's anyone that hasn't seen it, I'll put the links to all this anyway, but for anyone that hasn't seen it, it's, I think, 9 parts.
There is actually Pete Higgins.
Yes.
Yeah, I gave him the disc and I asked him could he put it up because I wasn't too familiar with internet that time.
And you're credited on that, but it's absolutely phenomenal.
So it's actually Pete Higgins, it's on his channel.
Yes, and I'll link to that for people to watch, but that, I remember seeing that a few years ago, and it was just to see all the old faces, Brian.
Absolutely,
and so let's roll it back then to you were maybe 15 or
I was 15
You were
years
15.
Old,
How did you have a video camera back?
My father bought the video camera in March that year, and I actually have the very first St. Patrick's Day parade, 1985, but I didn't get around to doing anything with that. I still have the footage, but I didn't get around to putting it on DVD to get it up on YouTube because I'd love to get that up on YouTube.
I'll definitely help you with that.
Perfect.
Because
I have the original footage of that as well, and I'd like to get that up on.
And do you know if the tapes are still okay? They're not molded or anything?
No, they're perfect.
Because I was going to say, have you other footage?
Oh, absolutely, lots of footage.
Well, we'll sort that out, Brian, because there's, myself included, but I know there's so many people.
I would love to share that for the people of Boyle because really it belongs to the people of Boyle.
Well, yes, but also to have the foresight, which I'm sure people back in those days were saying, what are you doing with this?
A lot of people used to say to me, what are you doing with that video camera? Get that out of my face, that. And I said, well, in another 30, 40 years from now, you're going to appreciate this. I had a vision that would definitely be valuable then,
Exactly.
valuable.
Well, and it is. It's exactly.
And now it's today that they appreciate that. Even myself, I'd love to see more footage of Boyle from back in if anyone has video or not video, but even film footage of Boyle.
Of course.
I'd be very interested in seeing that too.
But there's not that much kind of, there are some old video clips. I know Brendan McGee was talking about a clip on his episode, but the kind of footage that you have of like a social event,
yes,
especially something like the Arts Festival, where as you see in the video, just loads of people.
And the Graham sisters, like they were brilliant.
Exactly.
Absolutely brilliant. And Brendan O'Dowd and all the artists that performed that day were absolutely brilliant.
They were.
And I was delighted that I was able to capture that on video.
And like to have you were way ahead of your time in that era. Because
I always wanted to record. To me, that's memories, and it's very precious memories,
Very, 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 very precious memories. Yeah. And back in a day when I'd say there wasn't a handful of people in town that had a video camera.
Oh, no. Well, Mick Martin, the Countess, he had one. And also Patsy Quinn. But of course, Patsy Quinn had wonderful footage, would you believe it? And I remember going out to him one time, asking him for the tapes, and he gave me a whole load of tapes. There were the V2000 Philips tapes and some of the Betamax, but they're all, as you say, moulded.
Oh, they were moulded.
They're
useless, yeah.
Completely gone. And I was heartbroken. I said, and some of my tapes, would you believe it, have gone mouldy.
Yeah.
And I didn't realise that videotapes actually do go mouldy if they're not stored properly. It keeps them out of a damp place.
That's it, yeah. But I think in one of the good things about the digital age is that we can now get that stuff digitized.
Actually, that Boyle Arts Festival, about back 2009, 2008, I got an actual DVD recorder that could actually record from videotape. So I transferred a lot of the stuff over to DVD, just in case. And I'm glad I did that now, because a lot of the tapes have, as you say, gone mouldy.
And I suppose that's great getting them from the VHS tapes over to the CD/DVDs. But the next step is, as we were saying, is to get them digitally.
Yes.
Because then you have a second copy of that.
Absolutely.
Which is so important because, we'll definitely have to look into getting all that footage out because
I have tons of footage.
You told me before that you have a lot of footage and that needs to be seen.
And I also have the Shannon side on DVD as well. And I asked Bridge Duffy too, is it okay for me to put it up on YouTube, because you have to ask for permission too. She said yes, but I never got around to it.
Yeah,
because I need help with it really, because like computers don't.
I know it's not for everyone. It's not for everyone. No. But so you got into that. You had the video camera.
Video camera in 1985. I was able to operate that perfectly. I was able to copy from tape to tape, but digitalizing them is a bit of a challenge.
Yeah. But back in those days as well, Brian, you were going out then and kind of documenting the town.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, everyone takes it for granted now because we have all a smartphone.
Yes.
But you were doing it, 39 years, nearly 40 years ago.
Yes. 1985 was the year I got the video
39
camera.
Years ago, yeah.
Yeah. So as soon as I got that camera into my hands, I was filming everything. you know. Yeah.
And, were tapes expensive?
Oh yes, they were £10. They were for a 3-hour tape. It was £10.
And then I suppose if you didn't tape over them, you had to go and buy another one.
Well, that's another regret. I would share this as well, and I'm kicking myself over it. Because tapes were so expensive. I remember doing the ladies' football down in the pleasure grounds and putting that on video, but unfortunately I needed the tapes and I taped over them.
Oh, was that the gala, during the gala?
Yes, and the ladies doing their footballs, and I had a lot of footage of that, and of course my father said the tapes are very expensive. You have to tape over them.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I don't have anything like that.
But the stuff you do have is preserved.
Yes.
And the other stuff that you haven't yet gotten around to, that hopefully in the near future we'll get
up on my channel.
Yes. Oh yeah, we'll get it published on your channel, and because I think it's phenomenal. Like, it's no more than, I was only talking to Brendan McGee about, he has a lot of photos of his dad that he hasn't got around to kind of processing. And again, people are just, there's so much need for seeing old footage of Boyle.
Absolutely,
and it's great
yes.
that you have.
Yes, yes.
And Brian, one of the other things that you recorded that's up on your channel at the moment it was called Give Us a Clue, and I think it was a fundraiser back, but it's in 1987 in Parkers.
That's right, yes.
And it has, tell us a bit about that, or what you remember of filming about that.
Oh, just remember, like, my father used to have it in the pub. It was Give Us a Clue. We'd have a night of Give Us a Clue, and of course, the locals had kind of get involved, and it was a bit more of a game more than...
I think Michael Gilmartin from the...
That's right, from the Forest Park Hotel.
Yeah, he was the host, I think.
He was, yeah,
or
he
MC.
Was. But, yes...
There's great footage. You have I think there's 2 episodes, 23 minutes each.
That was actually after Give Us a Clue itself, and then we had Monty doing the music, and it's actually done into 3 parts. It was a friend of mine, she's died since, but she actually helped me put it up on the YouTube channel for me.
Yeah, that's some great footage as well of the Parkers, which
Absolutely.
As we know was
and
huge...
It was a wonderful night, the music was fabulous.
Yeah.
And I remember it was 2 o'clock when we finished, and it was 4 o'clock when we got home.
And so back at that stage, you were videoing stuff around town for 2 years, a good 2 years.
I was, yes.
So you would have had a bit more experience, as they say.
Oh, yes, absolutely,
yeah.
yes. Because when I started first, I was inclined to be swinging the camera too fast, and my father used to say, that's unwatchable, and it'll make me dizzy looking at it.
It still rings true today, though, and you see,
yes.
So, it's...
So I had to I got a tripod. My father and my brother Paul was up in Dublin at a vintner's do, I think it was, and... or was it the Spring Show or Spring Show. And I didn't travel up that day with them, but my brother seen in the shop window a tripod, and he said, oh, that'd be perfect for Brian and his camera, So he got Daddy to buy the tripod. So that was able to study the shot a bit better than swinging the camera or holding the camera by hand.
And what make of camera can you remember?
A Panasonic.
And was it heavy?
No, very light.
It was one of the small little...
Yeah, it was the latest video camera. WVP-1E was the camera, and the video recorder then was the Panasonic MV180. I still have the equipment, and it's still working to this day.
And so you still have that?
I still have that equipment.
That's great. That's a great piece of memorabilia, isn't it?
Absolutely, yes.
We're already, 39 years since that footage was taken.
And that camera is still working. It was rock solid. It never gave it trouble. The recorder did all right, the heads and that went, but I was able to replace the heads and that myself.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. And another thing you told me about there was, you remember, this is getting away from the music, but it was the National Irish Bank in the early 2000s was robbed.
It was, because I remember actually lodging money that day. I was coming back from the pub and I was lodging money, and I had just left the bank when I heard the commotion, and I said, oh, what's going on there? And apparently somebody went in to try to rob the bank, but it was I think Frank Feehan that ran down after them. I got the money back fair dues to him.
Oh, so it was robbed?
It was robbed,
right.
But he got the money back as far as I know, yeah. I said, I'm glad I wasn't there to witness that. And then I was kind of picturing in my mind, God, you can imagine when these fellas with guns and that.
And had they guns?
I think they had guns, yeah. But anyway, thank God there was nobody killed or injured. But yeah, I had just left the bank 15 minutes. It was actually 15 minutes after I left that the incident happened.
Ah. And another thing you mentioned there before we started as well was when you were 7, you can remember, is D.H. Burke's fire.
That's right.
1977.
1977. I remember the lights going off in the house. We were living over the pub at the same time, and everything went black. And yes, D.H. Burke.
And was it during the night or during
It was during the night, yeah. Yes, it was.
And if I remember correctly, the St. Joseph's Church in 1977 also.
I remember that too.
Do you remember that?
I do, yes. That was in April, I think, yes.
And when was the fire in Burke's?
It was, I think, later on that year, I think.
Okay. Yeah. And there was also Camden's warehouse in Patrick Street. Now, I don't think it was the same year, but I do remember James Camden on his episode talking about there was a number of big fires in Boyle within a two-year period. Burke's and the church would have been the two others. His Camden's warehouse was also the other one.
And also our pub went on fire in June of 1979.
Oh, really?
Our pub went on fire, yes. It was in the Scommon Herald in Edmonton.
Oh, because what James had mentioned in his episode was that there was a number of those big fires.
Yes.
And there was talk around the town, a rumour around the town, that there was an arsonist that was deliberately setting fire to these premises.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
No,
but
the fire actually in the church, I do remember what happened. Somebody left the heater on in the confessional and the curtain caught fire.
And that's what started.
That's what started that fire,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But that was the heater left on.
Yeah, just James said there was rumours. That was all the talk of, because there was like so many of these big fires.
No. As far as I know, there was nothing like that. No. Just unfortunate events. Electrical faults. Because when our place went on fire, it was an electrical fault because it was investigated. And that actually, but that ended the John McCormack room. The John McCormack room started in 1976 and it finished off with the fire in 1979.
And that's what finished. That's what
finished the
right.
job. And my mother had a beautiful piano that was destroyed in the fire.
Because I was just going to say, in the footage of the arts festival that you took, you can see obviously the pub in the background, and you can also see the John McCormack sign that's facing the river.
That's right. Yes, that was never taken down. We left them there. They were taken down the year afterward. That actually.
Yeah. And now, before I forget as well, Brian, you did bring along your keyboard, and you're kind enough to play a little tune for us on the Voices of Boyle. So what we'll do is we'll get set up, and we'll come back, and we'll have you playing the tune for us.
Yes, perfect.
Okay, Brian. So you're all set up now, and you can take it away whenever you're ready. Good man, Brian. Lovely little party piece, as you said. Well, thanks very much for that. That was lovely, so it was.
Yeah.
And Brian, you're involved in a prayer meeting on every Tuesday night the Family Resource Centre.
Joseph's Family Resource Centre.
Yeah. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, a friend of mine, Noni Lav, and she's into her prayer life as well. And she decided since 2014, there was the mission in Boyle, and we decided we'll form a prayer group. So, of course, she's into scripture. She's very good at into scripture and that. I'm not so much, to be honest with you. I find it hard to kind of get it in there. But I'm very religious in my own right, like, you know what I mean? And unfortunately, religion now is dying out in our country now. Unfortunately, like
I was going to say, Brian, how have you seen religion change from as a young fella?
Yeah, absolutely. Like
in what ways, Brian, would you think?
Well, back then you kind of like proud to say you were a Catholic or whatever, you know. Nowadays you kind of have to be mindful of people because there's so many different cultures now, different beliefs and that.
And do you think that is maybe one of the reasons why the Angelus is no longer? Is the Angelus on?
Yeah, no, it is, but it's not. The Virgin Mary, the Virgin and Child is no longer depicted.
Really?
Because I remember that was number one thing in our house, like. When the Angelus was on the television, I didn't notice the Virgin Mary and the Child Jesus. Now you don't see that now, and that kind of offends me in a way because I think my religion, my faith is very important to me.
Of course.
And I will stand by it 100%.
Yeah.
And like everybody else, I respect their religion, but my religion is very important to me.
And do you think then it's because, like, I think I didn't know that about the Virgin Mary wasn't depicted in the Angelus anymore, but
yeah, I think there was a survey there a few years ago. Somebody was saying they were going to actually scrap it altogether, but there was actually people had a petition saying no. But I thought they'd keep the Virgin Mary at least but then they don't want to offend any other religion. But it's not about offending a religion. Like, this country was founded on our religion.
no,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think as well as if you go to another country, you respect their religion.
Absolutely.
I don't think. Yeah, I think Ireland loses a bit of its identity if we go down that route of kind of tiptoeing and walking on eggshells.
Well, I won't walk on any eggshells. I'm proud of my religion, and I will not change, not for anybody.
Yeah, no, I think that's admirable.
And I respect other religions as well. They have their beliefs, you know what I mean?
That's
and
how it should be.
I wouldn't step on them either.
Everyone can get along.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
it's all about live and let live.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yes.
And do you then see a difference in the way younger generations, Brian, connect with religion today?
Oh yes, like when we even my parents I used to hear them saying that the rosary was said every evening at home in their house. Now, if you go into a house now, there's no talk of the rosary, and especially the Sacred Heart lamp and the Sacred Heart picture. You don't see them anymore in any houses. A lot of the newer houses don't have that. But like, I still have a Sacred Heart.
Yeah. I see that as well, where I suppose when the Angelus came on at 6 o'clock,
yes.
everything stopped.
Absolutely. You just bless yourself. You don't have to go the whole 9 yards. Just bless yourself and give
But
Jesus
there was a time
reverence.
when everything stopped.
Absolutely.
And I don't think it happens now that people even bless themselves.
No.
It's just, if I would get from what I think maybe the younger generation, if they were flicking through the channels and they happened to come on RT when the Angelus was on at 6 o'clock, they'd just flick to another channel.
They would, that's right.
And I think that's just...
And it's no fault of their own.
No, not at all.
It's just the times we're living in, you know?
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
But I understand, I think my faith alone has brought me through some tough times. And like, it was my faith that kind of has me here now, because that's what kept me strong. Like, a lot of people say, well, what kept you strong? Was it this, was it that? Well, in my case, it was believing in the Lord Jesus and the Virgin Mary. We can't get on without them. We need our religion, definitely. And when push comes to shove, when you're really at your lowest, that's when you can come face to face with your beliefs, you know, and they've got me through some tough times, yeah.
And Brian, one of the things I'd like to touch on is, how have you seen Boyle change as a result of COVID, with the COVID years? Have you seen a big change in Boyle from an economic point of view as well, like businesses and stuff?
Yes, when COVID broke out in March of 2020, I remember when the pubs closed down and when the restaurants closed down, that was a big, done a lot of damage, because at the time I thought it might be only for 2 weeks, and then it kind of dragged on for another week, and then it was a month, and it dragged on. I got the inspiration then to maybe sell, because there was no prospect of it ever opening up again. And yes, COVID has done a lot of damage. It's done a lot of damage to Boyle now. A lot of businesses have closed down and will never reopen, unfortunately. And of course, then people kind of got... At the first, people were very fearful. They were actually didn't know it was a new disease, it was a new virus. People were very wary. The only time I was scared of it was when I seen the ventilators in Italy. When people... That did kind of scare me at first. But then as time went on, I said, listen, no, it's no any worse than any cold. It was a new virus, yes, but like, they'll soon tackle it in their own way. But I thought myself, I was never worried, I was never afraid of COVID, never. Actually, from day one, I was never actually afraid of COVID. Even though there was lockdowns and there was, people were restricted, only 1 or 2 people could come into your house, which was a bit of an over-the-top reaction, I thought myself now, and the 2 kilometres. And of course, as time went on, the restrictions were lifted a bit, but people never really recovered from it. People are still very fearful.
I was going to say, do you think as a result of COVID now, when it comes to health, people are a lot more fearful about getting a cold or a flu in case it could be something?
Yeah, but I think people are kind of seeing it now for it's no worse than the common cold. You know what I mean? Okay, there is people with underlying problems that have to, like the flu can kill you. If you have an underlying condition, the flu can kill you. But where COVID is concerned, no, I'm not worried about COVID, no. But it has done a lot of damage, and unfortunately, Boyle may never recover.
And you mentioned there that was as a result of COVID that you decided to sell the family business.
Yeah, because you see, they told me it could be 10 years before anything come back to normal. I said, no, I'm not waiting 10 years. No, I said, no, it's time to get out. I think I was right, I think.
I was going to say, do you regret it?
No.
Well, then that's good. As long as you have no regrets.
No regrets.
Moving kind of forward then, what do you hope remains the same in the town for future generations? Like what have we now that we hope will be there for future generations?
Well, it's up to the people of Boyle themselves. I'd say it'll be okay. But the only thing is, what's the idea of these footpaths, widening out these footpaths? I think that's destroying it altogether. Like, you can't park downtown. If I went to go downtown now, I prefer to walk. I go downtown and walk downtown, because bringing a car down is a bit of a no-no.
Yeah.
Where would you park, you know?
Yeah.
I think it's a bit of an overreaction with these footpaths.
They look nice.
They are nice, but they're too wide.
That's the sentiment, I think, across the especially when you see there at the corner, Creighton's corner, when you see Larry's going by. It's been talked about so much.
I think it's a bit of a joke. Somebody has lost the plot, really.
I wonder, will it ever be reversed? I don't think it will.
No.
Because I think, there's a lot of push to kind of get the whole, town maybe. It looks nice, don't get me wrong.
Oh, yes.
But I do think there's less traffic going to be coming into towns. As you said, you'd prefer walking.
No, I prefer to drive down the park and, walk. But if it's raining, suppose it's spilling down rain and you need a car to get into the car and go downtown. But
you can't park as easily as these places.
That's going to do a lot of damage, really, unfortunately.
And I think unless I know they're renovating currently at the moment the post office car park.
I really don't know what's happening there.
I don't know.
What's the idea there? Are they going to widen the car parking spaces, or are they going to block it off?
I don't know what they're doing with that, but if it makes more car parking space,
great, yes.
Yeah, we need it, because obviously with the decreased parking space for the town.
Well, there's a lot of people now. I have a few of my friends now that's not able to walk, and they need a car. Like there today now, I had to go downtown with somebody, and I had to actually park outside the post office. Unfortunately, park up on the footpath there, because the person couldn't walk any distance. You know what I mean? And it's not fair on them. Because, like, I don't mind. I'd park anywhere really and walk back to the but there's some people that can't walk.
Yeah. And how do you see the town changing then in the next 10 or 20 years from now, Brian?
Well, if they continue on the trend they continue on, I'm afraid put a gate on one end of Boyle and a gate on the other end and put a padlock on it and go by. Because really, it's up to the people of Boyle to stand up and say, we had enough of this now. And if everyone was to get together and say, no, we don't want this happening, we want to bring back business back into Boyle, the people are going to have to stand up and say, no, enough is enough now. Listen to the people, listen to the voices of the people of Boyle. They're living there. They can see all that's happening on the ground,
Yeah. I think with the whole online thing as well, online shopping has become so prevalent now.
That's another danger, really.
It is.
The small shops, especially like Marion's there now.
Family-owned small shops.
They're the ones who are going to suffer, really. And I'd hate to think that they're going to have to close down.
Yeah, and I know they've pivoted as well and gone online. Same with Bowls. They've adjusted and they've gone online. So, hopefully they can move with the times as well.
Hopefully.
You'd like to see.
But I'd hate to see that shop closing down, all because of online shoppers.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's unfortunately the crux of the age we live in. But it's something that is very important.
But going forward from now, I'd say there is hope for Boyle. There's better times ahead. Like, we talk all day and say doom and gloom, this and doom and gloom that. I'd say Boyle is going to shine out one day. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have great hope for Boyle. Yes.
Oh, absolutely. There's huge potential to go back to the roaring trading days of the 80s or 90s.
Yes, but like, it's not all lost.
Not
now
at
is
all.
the time to grab it and say, well, and people just look and say, well, we don't want Boyle to be a forgotten town.
Yeah.
Or it's been bypassed or whatever. Like, Carrick and Shannon doing very well. Good for Carrick and Shannon, but our local town of Boyle, and I love Boyle.
Yeah.
I lived there all my life, and I'm going to live there until the day I die.
Absolutely.
Hope for Boyle to come up. I'd say it will.
Yeah.
There's still good potential for Boyle, yes.
Huge potential, Brian. Yeah,
yes.
Absolutely. And if you could pass on one piece of advice to the younger generation that are growing up here in Boyle, what would it be?
Well, I'd say don't lose hope. There's a bright future there for you, and I can't see why not. Boyle is there, people are there. Just come together, and we'll get through it.
Yeah.
We will.
And what do you hope future generations would remember about Boyle as it is today? Is there anything that we have today that you think future generations will look back, Brian, and say, he had it good back then?
Oh, yeah, well, you see, like, we're going through a tough time now, but there's always been tough times, you know what I mean? But we'll get through it. We will. If we all work together and stick together, we'll get through it, yes.
Yeah. And I suppose how I like to finish up, Brian, is there anything we haven't touched on already that you'd like to maybe mention or talk about?
Well, just that I had some wonderful times in Boyle, some fun times, some sad times too, but some wonderful times. And like, we have a wonderful town in Boyle, like, and the people are fabulous, and the people are lovely, and the people of Boyle are absolutely, my inspiration is the people of Boyle are wonderful, absolutely. And Lord, long may it last. That's all I can say, long may it last.
Well, thanks very much, Brian. I really enjoyed that chat. And
thanks, Carlos, for
not a problem at
inviting me on to share.
Absolutely. And as I said, we'll talk about that footage. We have to get that footage seen.
Absolutely, definitely.
There's plenty more of Brian Scanlon's work that has to be seen yet. Thanks very much, Brian.
Thank you. Bye now.